Um, what if the reason you feel limited isn't because your brain lacks power, but because, well, it's deliberately locking you out of its own operating system?
Oh, that is such a wild concept to start with.
Right. I mean, welcome to this deep dive, everyone. Today, we're looking at just a single, highly provocative piece of text.
Yeah, and it makes a rather bold claim, honestly.
It really does. It basically says that sitting right inside your skull is the world's most powerful supercomputer, yet, you are completely unaware of its true capacity.
And the source material we're looking at today is just fascinating from a structural perspective alone.
Oh, for sure.
Like this really punchy, fast-paced excerpt. And originally, it was written in this highly engaging mix of Hindi and English.
Which gives it such a specific vibe, right?
Exactly. That linguistic blend gives it this very modern, um, almost urgent energy. It's definitely not written like some dry medical journal.
No, not at all. It reads like a direct challenge to you, the reader.
Yeah, framing human biology not as this, static state, but as a piece of hardware that's just waiting for a software update.
So we're going to explore the mechanics of that claim today. The text takes us on this journey from the staggering biological hardware we all possess straight into the deeply tantalizing and maybe potentially dangerous question of what it actually means to hit unlock on our own potential.
Right.
To start, the source establishes the sheer physical scale of the machine we're talking about. It states that the human brain contains approximately 100 billion neurons.
Which is, that's a number so vast that human cognition kind of struggles to genuinely process it.
Yeah, 100 billion is it's abstract.
Right. We tend to gloss over billions as just, a very large amount.
It's like trying to picture the number of stars in a massive galaxy, but all packed into a 3-pound space inside your head.
That's a great way to put it. But the text quickly moves past just the sheer volume to focus on a more critical metric, which is speed and architecture.
Okay, speed and architecture.
Yeah, it emphasizes that these neurons send signals at speeds so incredibly fast, they basically leave artificial supercomputers completely behind.
I have to admit, I struggle with the text's foundational metaphor here.
Oh, how so?
Well, the source titles itself Unlocking the Human Supercomputer, using that term as the ultimate benchmark for processing power.
Right.
But if the text simultaneously claims that our biology leaves actual artificial supercomputers in the dust, isn't comparing the brain to a machine we built fundamentally limiting?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, it kind of feels like we're trying to describe a quantum engine by comparing it to, like, a really fast bicycle.
That's fair. But the limitation of the metaphor is exactly what makes the text's rhetorical strategy so effective, I think.
Really? How so?
Well, a supercomputer is the absolute pinnacle of human engineering, right?
Right, yeah.
So by telling you that your own biological tissue just effortlessly outperforms our greatest technological achievement, the source kind of shatters your baseline complacency.
Oh, interesting. Like it wakes you up.
Exactly. But mechanically speaking, the reason the brain leaves silicon behind isn't just raw signal speed. It really comes down to the architecture.
The architecture.
Yeah, traditional supercomputers, for all their immense power, are fundamentally linear.
Okay.
They execute instructions incredibly quickly, but they largely do so in a structured, sequential queue.
Let's break down the mechanics of that architectural difference, because I think that's key.
Yeah, let's do it.
So if a linear supercomputer is like hiring a single, incredibly fast courier to deliver billions of packages one by one across a city.
Right, even if that courier is moving at the speed of light, there's still a bottleneck.
Exactly. The system can only process the next task once the current task is totally finished.
Right. But building on that, the brain operates on a massively parallel architecture.
Massively parallel.
Yeah. So instead of one courier moving at light speed, imagine a city where every single resident is standing outside, handing packages directly to their neighbors simultaneously.
Oh, wow. That's a crazy image.
Right. Those 100 billion neurons aren't waiting in a queue. Millions of them are firing, processing, and communicating at the exact same time across this massively interconnected web.
Which fundamentally redefines how we measure power, to be honest.
It really does.
I mean, when you think of a modern industrial supercomputer, you picture a massive sterile warehouse.
Oh, yeah. Row upon row of sleek, black server racks.
Exactly. deafening industrial cooling fans, blinking lights everywhere. And the text specifically contrasts this implied industrial environment with biological silence.
Right.
An artificial system of that scale demands megawatts of electricity and aggressive thermal management just to prevent the processors from physically melting down under the load.
And yet, this galaxy of 100 billion interconnected biological processors sits quietly in a 3-pound space.
Operating in complete silence.
Complete silence. And the deduction we can make from the text contrast is profound, honestly. The brain achieves this parallel processing marvel using only about 20 watts of energy.
Look, 20 watts.
Yeah. That is roughly the power required to run, like, a dim refrigerator light bulb.
That is insane.
Right. We build warehouse-sized machines that drain entire municipal power grids, and they still cannot replicate the parallel efficiency of a biological system running on the caloric equivalent of a banana.
Okay, but if the brain's hardware architecture is so vastly superior, operating massively in parallel with unfathomable efficiency, the natural question becomes, well, where is all that computing power actually going?
Ah, yeah. The million-dollar question.
Right, because if I'm walking around with a machine that outpaces the world's greatest servers, why do I occasionally forget my own passwords? Or struggle to calculate a tip at a restaurant?
It's a fair point.
Yeah.
But the text answers this by shifting our focus from the raw hardware to the biological software.
Okay, the software.
Yeah, it points out that the brain performs thousands of calculations per second just to control the physical body.
Oh,
It spans an immense spectrum. Managing unconscious physiological processes like your heartbeat and digestion, all the way up to generating complex, conscious human thoughts.
we can actually map this directly onto the architecture of modern computing.
Oh, how so?
Think of it like the kernel-level processes on a computer's operating system.
Okay, yeah.
As a user, you only ever interact with the graphical user interface, the GUI.
Right.
You double-click an application, a window opens, and you think that is what the computer's doing. To you, that active application is the entirety of the machine's existence.
Oh, I love that analogy because the conscious mind, like the active thought you're having right now about the words we're saying, is just the GUI.
Exactly. Meanwhile, you are completely oblivious to the fact that the machine is spending the vast majority of its compute power maintaining the architecture.
Right, doing all the background work.
It's managing memory allocation, regulating thermal dynamics, pinging network gateways,
Yeah.
executing background daemons.
Yeah, and the text is pointing out that human consciousness is merely an application running on top of an incredibly demanding biological operating system.
That makes a lot of sense.
The sheer computational load required to maintain biological homeostasis is staggering. I mean, simply walking across a room requires real-time spatial mapping,
Right.
continuous adjustments to muscle tension, balance calibration based on inner ear fluid dynamics,
Wow.
and the constant regulation of blood pressure to ensure oxygen reaches the active tissues.
And we don't think about any of that.
Exactly. If your conscious mind, the GI, had to manually execute the thousands of background calculations required just to process visual stimuli or trigger digestive enzymes, the entire system would freeze.
You'd just crash.
Yeah.
Well-
You would never have the processing bandwidth to formulate a single abstract thought.
So the brilliance of the system lies in its automation.
Precisely.
The biological OS silently manages the mechanics of survival, so the conscious mind can focus on higher-level problem solving. But this actually reveals a massive contradiction in the source text.
You mean the pivot point regarding the small fraction?
Yes. The text leans in and delivers what it frames as a shocking fact.
Right.
It claims that despite all this incredible hardware, despite the 100 billion neurons and the massively parallel architecture, we only use a small fraction of our brain power.
Yeah, that's the big claim.
And therefore, we have a hidden power inside of us that has not yet been unlocked. But biologically speaking, that sounds like a complete myth.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, because if the text just established that the biological OS is constantly running thousands of background processes to keep the system from failing, how can it simultaneously claim we're only using a small fraction?
It's a paradox.
Right. It implies there's a literal chunk of physical brain matter just sitting dark and dormant somewhere in your skull.
Well, it's easy to dismiss the text claim if you look at it purely through the lens of anatomical activity.
What do you mean?
Like, if you place a human in an fMRI machine, you will see electrochemical activity distributed across the entire brain, even during a resting state.
Right, the whole thing lights up.
Exactly. There are no dark, inactive voids waiting to be switched on. However, and this is crucial, The text isn't a peer-reviewed neurology paper.
True.
It's a piece of highly motivational, culturally tuned media. When it claims we only use a small fraction, it's operating on a completely different layer.
Okay, so it's a metaphor.
Yes. It's not talking about firing more physical neurons.
Yeah.
It's targeting conscious allocation.
So it's referring to the bandwidth of the GUI, not the capacity of the hardware.
Precisely. The text is pointing out that our conscious output, our focus, our creativity, our discipline, only represents a tiny percentage of the system's total potential capability.
Ah, I see.
But going back to your earlier point about system limitations, the text frames this small fraction as a tragic flaw, like a limitation to be overcome.
Right.
But in reality, our inability to consciously access all 100 billion neurons at once isn't a design flaw. It's a critical evolutionary feature.
It's a biological battery saver.
Exactly. Think about the thermal dynamics and energy constraints we discussed earlier.
Right, the 20 watts.
The brain is hyper-efficient, but it still operates within the strict metabolic budget of the human body. It utilizes a process called selective inhibition.
Selective inhibition.
Yeah. The system's efficiency relies heavily on its ability to suppress unnecessary activity.
That makes total sense.
If the brain actually fired all its neurons at maximum capacity simultaneously, it wouldn't result in profound genius. It would result in a catastrophic metabolic drain.
Oh, wow.
Biologically uncontrolled, massive synchronous firing across the brain is the literal definition of a grand mal seizure.
So our limitation is essentially thermal throttling.
Yep.
The system deliberately locks us out of the back-end processes and limits our conscious bandwidth to prevent the biological hardware from overheating and crashing.
Which is exactly why the psychological allure of the text is so intensely powerful.
Because we don't like feeling throttled.
Right. We physically feel those system constraints every single day. We experience mental fatigue, we lose focus, we struggle to learn complex new skills.
We've all been there.
And because we feel constrained, we desperately want to believe the text's narrative.
That the limitation isn't permanent.
Exactly. That it's not a permanent boundary, but rather an artificial lock placed on an otherwise limitless machine.
So the idea of a hidden power appeals directly to this universal human desire for optimization.
It really does.
By framing our cognitive limits as a software lock rather than a hardware reality, the text provides this incredibly comforting explanation for our everyday struggles.
It's very reassuring.
It tells you, hey, your current reality isn't your maximum capacity. Your hardware is vastly superior to a supercomputer. You simply haven't secured administrator access yet.
And framing it as an administrator access issue transforms a biological reality into an actionable narrative.
Actionable how?
Well, if you're unhappy with your career, your focus, or your creative output, the text reassures you that you don't need to fundamentally change who you are. You just need to figure out how to bypass the system's factory constraints.
Which brings us to the culmination of the excerpt. Having laid out the staggering scale of the hardware, and after tantalizing the reader with the promise of hidden, untapped power, the text leaves us with an ultimate what if.
The big question.
It asks us to imagine what could happen if we actually ran this biological supercomputer at full power. And then it ends with a very direct, modern call to action.
Oh, yeah.
It tells the reader to drop into the comments and type the word UNLOCK to claim this potential.
The ultimate gamification of human biology.
It makes me incredibly nervous, to be honest, when you apply the mechanical reality of overclocking to the human mind.
How do you mean?
Well, think about what happens when a tech enthusiast takes a high-end computer processor and intentionally bypasses the manufacturer's thermal limits to squeeze out more performance.
Right, overclocking.
You force the hardware to run at absolute maximum capacity, the system gets incredibly hot,
Yeah.
the fans spin up to industrial speeds, it draws massive, unstable amounts of power from the grid.
And things start to break down.
Exactly. You might get a temporary spike in processing speed, but you degrade the physical hardware rapidly, and you push the entire system to the absolute brink of a catastrophic crash.
It's so true. The text completely ignores the biological cost of sustained maximum output.
Completely.
But the sheer effectiveness of ending on the word "inLASIK" reveals a profound truth about how modern society views the human condition.
We love a quick fix.
We do. We are currently living in an era entirely obsessed with life hacking.
Oh, definitely.
We track our sleep cycles, we measure our macronutrients, we optimize our morning routines. We treat our own biology as a project to be endlessly refined and exploited for maximum productivity.
We basically view ourselves as software that just requires a premium subscription to remove the ads and access the pro features.
That's a perfect way to put it. Typing the word ENLAW-seek in a comment section is a deeply symbolic gesture.
Yeah.
It's the reader consciously accepting the premise that they are a machine. It's a public declaration that they desire root access to their own source code.
Wow.
The text masterfully constructs this desire. It builds the reader up by revealing the unfathomable scale of their neurobiology.
Right.
It humbles them by pointing out how little of it they consciously command. And then it offers the illusion of absolute control with a single keystroke.
You really cannot deny the visceral impact of reading it.
Not at all.
When a text, especially one with that fast-paced Hindi and English urgency, tells you that you are walking around with an unparalleled supercomputer in your skull, it creates an immediate sense of responsibility.
Oh, absolutely.
Nobody wants to realize they possess a machine capable of outpacing the greatest servers on Earth, only to use it primarily for, like, scrolling through short-form videos and remembering grocery lists.
It creates a fascinating friction between acceptance and ambition.
Friction, yeah.
Should we accept the biological constraints of our small fraction as necessary protections for our sanity and survival? Or should we constantly push against those boundaries in search of the next cognitive leap?
Let's trace the arc of the insights we've pulled from this source material today.
Let's do it.
We began by confronting the immense physical reality of our biological hardware. 100 billion neurons, utilizing a massively parallel architecture that fundamentally redefines our concept of processing power.
Right.
We explored the mechanics of efficiency, recognizing that our brain silently outperforms industrial servers while running on the energy of a dim light bulb.
And we then mapped the distribution of that power. We understood that the vast majority of our processing capability acts as a biological operating system.
The OS.
Yeah. It quietly maintains homeostasis, keeping the physical machine alive, so that the tiny, constrained application we call our conscious mind can function without crashing the system.
And we analyzed the text's claim that we only use a small fraction of our potential.
Right.
We realized that while this is a biological misconception in terms of physical brain activity, it is a profoundly compelling psychological narrative.
It really is.
The limitation isn't a flaw, it's a critical thermal and metabolic protection. Yet the text successfully leverages our frustration with those constraints into this desperate desire for optimization.
Which culminates in the text's ultimate provocative demand, the call to you and all seek our full power.
Yeah.
It challenges us to imagine overriding the system's safety protocols in pursuit of maximum output.
So the source leaves us standing on the precipice of our own potential, armed with the knowledge of our hidden architecture. But exploring the mechanical realities of the text leaves us with a critical, lingering question that goes far beyond raw processing power.
It does. It raises a fundamental question about the nature of our ambition.
Okay.
The text promises that incredible superhuman achievements await us if we simply hit UM-all-sick and run our biological supercomputer at full power. It dangles the allure of absolute unyielding optimization.
Right.
But if we ever do discover the biological root password, if we learn how to override our system constraints, strip away all our inefficiencies, and maximize every single calculation, what happens to our humanity?
Yeah, well,
If we successfully eliminate every biological bottleneck to become a machine of pure, unadulterated output, will we actually unlock the ultimate version of ourselves? Or will we simply become as cold, sterile, and calculating as the artificial machines we are currently so proud to be leaving behind?
man, that is a staggering trade-off to consider the next time you find yourself wishing for just a little more mental bandwidth.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, thank you for joining us as we explored the intricate architecture, the silent symphony of calculations, and the dangerous allure of overclocking your own mind. Keep questioning the systems running in your background, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.